cheating wife who left me while I was in the hospital now wants forgiveness after 12 years. Hi, I'm Jason, a 47-year-old man. I want to share my story and get some advice. 12 years ago, I was married to Susan, my first wife. We had been married for 7 years and had 2 children, Laura and Lucas, who were 5 and 3 at the time. We lived a normal life until one fateful day. One morning, while driving to work, a speeding car crashed into mine. The next thing I remember is waking up in a hospital bed, covered in bandages. A nurse told me I had been in a coma for 2 days. I thanked my doctor for saving my life, but I had no idea of the disaster that awaited me. After a week of treatment, my doctor told me that my lower body was paralyzed, and I might never walk again. I was devastated. Susan was also very upset. She had to take care of everything at home and look after our children. I fell into a deep depression, unable to imagine my life in a wheelchair. I spent my days staring at the hospital walls, feeling my life had turned upside down. I feared I would never play soccer with my children, dance with my wife, or be free again. Susan stopped visiting me regularly. At first, she brought the children to see me 3 times a week. Those moments with my family were the only ones I looked forward to. But as time went on, her visits became less frequent. When I begged her to bring the children more often, she said they didn't want to see me. I felt hopeless. One day, Susan handed me divorce papers. She said, "I can't spend my life with a handicapped man. I'm still young and desirable. I deserve a normal man." I'd be lying if I said I didn't see it coming. I sensed the separation when she started giving me the cold shoulder, but I didn't expect it to happen so soon. A month after my accident, friends told me they saw Susan with a middle-aged man, probably in his 50s, at cafes and malls. Some said she had an affair even before my accident, while others believed her desperation led her to this grubby old man after my accident. It was barely 2 months after my accident, and I was still in the hospital when she handed me divorce papers. I might sound calm writing this now, but back then, I was flustered, devastated, and heartbroken. I was wheelchair-bound, destitute, and divorced with no income or savings left after paying for household expenses and our children's education. Thankfully, insurance covered part of my hospital bills, but I had to use up my savings for the rest, leaving me with nothing. I wanted to scream, bang my head against the wall, and curse my fate. I don't know how I managed to stay sane, but perhaps it was the fire of revenge keeping me going. After being discharged, I moved to my parents' house. At 35, I was divorced, without income, and dependent on my elderly mother both physically and financially. My mother, a 62-year-old florist, ran a small shop in the suburbs. Her limited income and pension kept us afloat, and she offered to support me, but it was humiliating for me to depend on her at my age. Soon after my discharge, I went to visit my children. When I reached my house, it was locked. The neighbors told me Susan had moved in with her lover and taken the children. Her lover was described as a rich, fat old man who had been divorced 3 times and had no children. Some neighbors called Susan a gold digger for being with him. I managed to get his address and went to their new house. When I arrived, Susan refused to let me see my children. She said they had already adjusted to her boyfriend and called him daddy. She claimed my sudden appearance would confuse them and even threatened me with a restraining order. When I insisted on meeting my children, I realized I didn't have any money to hire a lawyer. I was living off my mother's small income, so I backed off. It had been less than 6 months since my accident and only a few months since my divorce, yet Susan was already living with another man. I felt disgusted and asked her how she could abandon me and move on so quickly. I know it was immature, but as a helpless, wheelchair-bound father, what else could I do? I pleaded with her for one chance to prove my worth, but she belittled me, calling me a burden in her life. I asked her if she had cheated on me before our divorce because we had only been divorced for a month, and she was already with her lover. She told me it was none of my business and that I should never show my face to her again. I stood there, thinking about our 7 years of marriage and how she had replaced me so quickly. With tears in my eyes, I left, feeling humiliated and defeated. I went back home and cried like a child in front of my mother, who consoled me and encouraged me to take charge of my life. I felt lost and directionless, but I decided to join my mother in her flower shop. I helped her make bouquets, serve customers, and clean the shop. Soon, I realized the business had great potential to grow, but my mother was too frail to manage it on her own. I reached out to my old contacts and secured contracts with event management companies to supply flowers for their events. Gradually, I built a team and started taking on contracts for venue decorations. Eventually, I launched my own event management company. It took me 12 long years to rebuild my life, but I did it with my mother's support. She always had my back. Throughout this time, my mother supported and motivated me to bounce back. A year after my accident, I found out that Susan was leaving the city with her children and her lover. I rushed to their house, but they had already left by the time I arrived. Before that, I had tried multiple times to reach out to my children, but Susan insulted me and chased me away every time. Susan had full custody of the children and made all the decisions for them. Since I was physically and financially challenged, I couldn't contest for joint custody or challenge her restraining order. I was too broke to hire a lawyer while Susan had a wealthy boyfriend even. I didn't know if he was with her before my accident or how he suddenly appeared in Susan's life. All I knew was that he was a rich man with ample ancestral property. Over the last 12 years, whenever I got any leads about my children, I traveled to meet them but failed every time. Susan threatened to have me arrested as her boyfriend had the money and connections to get away with anything. By the way, that man never married Susan even after 12 years, although they lived together. A year ago, I finally filed for joint custody. I had been waiting for my event management business to stabilize. I filed for custody and managed to get 15 days with my children. They are flying to my house next week, despite Susan's best efforts to object to my plea in court. I hired a good lawyer who presented my case well, and I got 15 days with my children. Now that they are older, 17 and 15, they were asked if they wanted to meet me, and they said yes. I know I can't make up for the lost 12 years, but I want to spend quality time with them. As the time approaches, I feel both nervous and excited. Teenagers can be demanding, and I hope they are not too mean or toxic. I don't know what stories Susan has told them over the years, and I'm unsure if I should tell them the truth about their mother. Do you have any suggestions on how to approach them? I'm super nervous and super excited. Update 1. Hi everyone, I have quite an update. I missed 2 critical pieces of information in my original post. First, about my current wife, Amy. Yes, I remarried 5 years ago. Amy is an interior designer. We met at an event where she was designing the wedding venue, and we were providing the flowers. I hadn't started my own company yet. It wasn't love at first sight, but we vibed well. We kept meeting at events over the next few months and became friends. Amy was a single mother of a 3-year-old daughter, Mia. The idea of starting an event management company was hers because she had worked for one for many years and had the contacts and knowledge of the business. We partnered to launch the company, dated for a year, and then got married. Now we live as a happy family of 4. Amy, Mia, my mother, and I, Maya, was delighted to get a granny, and my mother was equally thrilled. The second piece of information is about the accident compensation. I was hit by a speeding truck, so ideally, I should have been compensated by the logistics company that owned the truck. However, at the time, the company manipulated the facts about the accident and pinned the blame on me. I couldn't hire a good lawyer back then, so I didn't get a penny. You know how big companies work. They pay their attorneys a fortune to save themselves. After my marriage to Amy, she suggested I refile the case. Since we could afford a suitable lawyer, the case is still in court, but my lawyer is optimistic that the judgment will come in our favor. Now, back to my story. As I mentioned in my original post, 3 months ago, my children were supposed to visit me after 12 years of being apart. I was excited and nervous, but Amy calmed me down and supported me throughout. I went to pick them up from the airport. The elder one, Laura, is 15 now, and the younger one, Lucas, is 13. They have grown into beautiful and handsome teenagers. After the initial greetings, we ran out of things to say. It was awkward for all 3 of us on the way to the house. I tried to break the ice by asking them about their school life and the city, deliberately avoiding any conversation about their mother. They didn't bring her up either. The children were unusually silent, perhaps looking for an opportunity to plug into their earphones like any other teenagers. When we reached home, Amy welcomed us. The children looked shocked, as if they didn't expect this. I don't know why Amy surprised them. If their mother could live with another man so soon after our divorce, why couldn't I remarry? Amy had set up the guest room for the children. We had lunch together, and Amy laid out the vacation itinerary we had planned for the family. They responded neutrally to everything, neither excited nor dismissive. Amy and I were confused by their mixed response. They locked themselves in their room. Soon after, I got a call from their mother, Susan, accusing me of tricking the children. She said I brought them to my house with Amy and I could manipulate them. I felt disoriented by her accusations. She accused me of hiding the truth about my marriage. I hung up on her, but she persistently called me and decided to address the elephant in the room. I called my children and asked them what was the matter. After some initial hesitation, they spoke up. They were mad at me because they were told that I had abandoned them. Susan had brainwashed them against me, filling their heads with lies and deceit. I revealed the exact truth, that it was their mother who had jumped to another man as soon as she got the opportunity. They were kids back then, yet they remembered those incidents very well. I told them how Susan disappeared with them to her boyfriend's house and how she had threatened and chased me away. Whenever I tried to contact them, I showed them the restraining letter and all the rejected pleas I made to meet them. They were in tears and regretted believing their mother's lies all these years. My younger son, Lucas, admitted that he once tried to reach out to me on social media, but Susan caught him. She emotionally blackmailed him and made him promise never to contact me again. The children also admitted they had been rebuked by Susan's boyfriend. Susan and the children were mistreated at family gatherings because they were unmarried. Susan continued to stay as a mistress in his house. Although the man paid for their education, he was never a fatherly figure to them. My heart ached as I learned about my children's adversity. After all the truths came out, we hugged each other and cried our hearts out. We went on a week-long vacation in Florida and had a great time together. Laura and Lucas bonded with Amy and Mia, who was turning 8 this year. I couldn't be happier seeing my whole family together. My children uploaded our group photos on social media with the caption "Happy Family." As soon as Susan saw those photographs, she called them up and berated them for their behavior. She blamed them for betraying her by bonding with us. She texted me, threatening that she would not let me meet my children if I did anything to turn them against her. I laughed at her hollow threats and continued with our vacation. After returning from the vacation, my children met with my relatives. My relatives happily hosted them, and I was delighted to see old bonds rekindled. When they were about to leave, they promised to keep in touch despite Susan's threats. They said they felt suffocated living in that house and would move back with me once they completed high school. I hugged them and said goodbye. After going back, they confronted Susan about her behavior, but she turned the tables, accusing me of manipulating them against her. It's been a few months since they returned, but we talk regularly. I hope to have them back with me soon. I'll update you if anything develops. Thanks a lot for your support. Update 2. Hey all, I know it's been a long time since I updated you. A lot has happened in the last 6 months since my first meeting with my children. 3 months ago, the court case with the logistics company was settled. Guess what? I received hefty compensation not only for the accident but also for the injustices in the first trial. I'm not sure if I mentioned this before, but in the initial trial, the logistics company whose truck rammed into my car manipulated the case and pinned the blame on me for the accident. Hence, I was not compensated at all. At my wife's suggestion, I appealed again and won this time. I gave the news to my children, and they were equally elated. They wanted to meet me again, and I promised to have them back with me permanently. A month later, Susan showed up at my office. She held my hand and asked for forgiveness. I was taken aback at her sudden appearance. She admitted that after my accident, she became desperate. She found an older man who wanted a sugar baby. I didn't know about this term until I Googled it that day. The man had a few horrible experiences with younger women who ran away with his money after a few months, so he decided to settle with a not-so-young sugar girl, Susan, who was 32 back then. I clarified that I had moved on and that her pleadings didn't matter. She recounted all the happy moments we shared, like our wedding day and the birth of our 2 children. I shrugged her off, saying I was a different person now and that all those memories had faded away. They didn't mean anything to me. She crossed the line by saying that she and my children were my original family, not Amy and Mia. She said that Maya was not my daughter and that I could never have a proper family with Amy and Mia. I felt disgusted at her cruel words. She insisted that I take her back so the real family could reunite. I made it clear that I love Amy and Maya and that they are my real family, not her. She refused to leave my office and created a scene, leaving only when I threatened to call the police. I went back home and told my mother and Amy about the incident. Amy was naturally distressed, but she is a mature woman and didn't make a big deal out of it. My mother said she never liked Susan because of her selfishness. Mom even suggested that Susan had returned to me only because of the money I received from the court settlement, calling her a gold digger. When my children learned about their mother's behavior, they berated her and told her to stay in her lane. Somehow, her sugar daddy found out about this incident and threatened to throw her out if she tried to reach out to me again. I couldn't be more thankful to him. The latest update is that my children are moving in with me this month. They will stay with us briefly before going to a nearby college. They want to enjoy their college life and stay in a hostel. I believe we should stay connected but also give ourselves some space to get to know each other. The children have abandoned Susan, and in the end, she is left with nothing but her sugar daddy. I hope she enjoys the sugar until it turns sour. Haha.